Clarifications? Ms. Ang Hin Kee.
Chairman, I have a clarification for SPS Baey. Will the NAC look at contracts that have been given out to arts freelancer by, say, production houses, venue owners, recipients of NAC fund to ensure that the contracts comply with the tripartite standards that all government procurement entities have already adopted, so that the contracts are fair and the freelancers who sign on to those contracts get the fair deal and reasonable terms in those contracts? And the second clarification will be that I'm glad that you are offering an online resource for arts freelancers. When will the NAC consider perhaps a shared workplace for the arts freelancers to come together, to work, to exchange ideas, and to interact?
MCCY and its family will be a part of the tripartite arrangement by MOM, and we look forward to working with various partners, including NTUC, to see how we can help our freelancers, including contracts and other job opportunities and conditions of work affecting their well-being as well as financial stability. In the case of the shared workspace, yes, indeed, this is part of our plan as we develop the freelancer resource hubs, which will take the form of both the online resource portal as well as physical spaces, with a means of planning and developing the concept of these resource hubs, and we'll share more details later this year. Thank you.
Ms. Irene Kwek.
Chairman, I asked PQ last month regarding pool safety for private pools. So can I ask Minister Grace Fu if there are intentions to extend the drowning detectors to private pools and make it mandatory, because this is more urgent as the private pools actually do not have lifeguards on site. Thank you.
And I'd like to thank Ms. Kwek for her suggestion. Definitely an area that we can work with our colleagues in BCA and also MND to look at how we can improve safety in the pools. But at this point in time, the funding is for public pools, and as you can see, the implementation is quite phased out because we are still testing the technology and want to make sure that it gives us good value before we decide on broad-based implementation.
Mr. Faisal Manap.
Yes. Just now I heard Express mention that the national team coach will be announced in June. But according to a media report on the 25th of February, the FAS president mentioned that the selection process already at its tail end. So may I know, is there any reason for, or may I know the reasons for the delay?
I was referring to today's media reports about what FAS has said, that they are at the tail end, as I said, and they are looking towards appointing the national coach in time for the competition in June. So I think by June they will appoint the national coach. So I believe, well, this is a decision assessment process by FAS itself. I don't know exactly what caused the process to take this duration of time, but importantly, the national coach is a very important part in our development of high performance in football. So I believe the FAS leadership must have taken a very hard look and also to decide and to choose the best candidate to bring our national team forward. Thank you.
Ms. Anthea Ong.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Could I ask SMS Sim there have been a lot of government-driven efforts in community building, and there are also a lot of ground-up initiatives. How can we deepen these communities by encouraging both of these communities to come together to collaborate, so we don't actually build siloed communities as an unintended consequences?
I think what Ms. Anthea has asked, in fact, is at the heart of many of the efforts that we're doing in MCCY across all domains. The key, I think, is in coordination, in outreach, and in networking. So the approach taken under the SG Cares umbrella, I think, is very much, first and foremost, about bringing stakeholders together. For instance, the service providers, experts who have been studying various social issues, as well as champions for beneficiaries who understand particular aspects of their needs and aspirations. And we have found in instances where this occur that the networking and information sharing very often leads to new ways of collaborating, new partnerships. And I think all this will only serve to further benefit the vulnerable segments in society, and also I think in the process make many of these voluntary organizations stronger because they learn from each other.
Engineer Dr. Lee Biwa.
Thank you, sir. I have one clarification for SPSB. For SPEC scholarship, it consists of the allowance for the athletes, and it also have the support of overseas training, tournament, or this. In the event that the athletes do not take up the SPEC scholarship, will this overseas training assistance be given to NSA? And in short, will NSA be worse off if their athletes decided not to take up the SPEC scholarship? Thank you.
For someone to take up the SPEC scholarship, there is a commitment to train full-time, and we respect athletes' own decision whether or not to take up the SPEC scholarship and commit to those set of conditions. But earlier I shared about the campaign funding, which this year we have increased by 50%, which put in resources to train athletes for major games. And these are athletes who are not on the SPEC scholarship. So if someone turns down the SPEC scholarship, and if the person is of potential to represent Singapore at major games, the support under campaign funding will be available to the NSA to send the athlete overseas competition for training, so that the athlete or the NSA is not worse off. Besides this, the NSA also has a multi-year sports plan, which the NSA could put into the plan and discuss with Sport SG as part of its training needs, development needs for its athletes, including someone who may turn down a SPEC scholarship, because the time frame for both the SPEC scholarship and the multi-year sports plan is synced, so that NSA would have a good picture of what is coming up, and therefore be able to put together the resources. Sport SG's commitment is that as long as athlete has the potential, is willing to give the commitment, resources will be provided for, whether in the form of SPEC scholarship, multi-year fund, or the campaign funding. Thank you.
Ms. Yip Pinsue.
Thank you. Yeah, so I'd like to ask, since there's going to be equal support, and NSA it's their own choice to be inclusive or not, at this point of time, because SDSC actually covers more than 20 sports, so it's not very fair for one NSA to split the funding for 20 sports. So can there be more funding towards the Singapore Disability Sports Council?
Thank Ms. Yip for the question, and I'd like to applaud her for all these years of hard work and to bring glory to Singapore. I think her story is an inspiration for all of us. As for funding for SDSC, it is part of Sport SG's overall plan to support all NSAs. And depending on the plan, the strategies to develop the sport or many sports in SDSC. So the achievements of the Team Singapore athletes, well, including also in promoting mass participation, these will be taken into consideration. We know that SDSC hands are very full, the plate is very full with different sports, and we will give them our best support to help our para-athletes achieve their dreams. Thank you.
Ms. Alexia.
Mr. Chairman, building on the point that SPS made earlier on the SPEC scholarship, there is still a difference in the level of funding between the multi-year program as well as the SPEC scholarship. Perhaps one suggestion would be to make the SPEC scholarship a little bit flexible, because there are different elements to the SPEC scholarship. In certain cases, the athlete doesn't take up the scholarship because their current income it's already higher than what the SPEC scholarship would provide. So for them to take up the SPEC scholarship is a loss of income. However, could there be a possibility to remove that portion, allow them to continue on their current income without the cash benefit portion, but provide the rest of the benefits of the SPEC scholarship, including the overseas training grant, so that both the NSA would benefit as well as the athlete, him or herself?
Ms. Graceful. Yes, please.
Just like
It's your
to
ministry.
clarify, I think when we first came up with SPEC scholarship, it was really to support athletes who want to train full-time. In other words, I want to dedicate my time, maybe next 2, 3, 4 years, to competitive sport, and I really want to have the support to do that. And so SPEC scholarship, that was the genesis of SPEC scholarship. It is not just money, it's a commitment about dedicating your time, your energy, and there is also underlying a sort of an undertaking that you will do well. There are certain targets that we will set up together with the athletes, with the coaches, with the NSAs. So if someone has a well-paying job, then actually the question is that where does sport stay and where is career? So whether it will still be able to meet the kind of expectation under a SPEC scholarship. Something that we need to discuss with the athletes and also with the NSAs. So I think it is important for us to see that in the perspective. Definitely if the athlete is already well supported, doesn't need to have the income to train, I don't think we need to put a scholarship in front of the person. We can use the money to apply it for other purpose. And if that athlete are also joining the team in overseas training and so on, it will be considered as part of the funding grants.
Ms. Antheong.
Thank you, Chairman. I'd like to ask the Ministry regarding the Bicentennial Community Fund. I understand that in terms of implementation and governance, that we focus on the IPCs, and I think as SMS said that there's about 600 IPCs in Singapore. But we also know that there are many, many more registered charities that are not IPCs, the smaller organizations, as well as the grown-ups and social enterprises that, in my view, should also be enfolded into this bicentennial commemoration and to support them. Can SMS share what else we can do to support these other organizations that are not IPCs, because it clearly disadvantages them. Because anytime there's a matching grant, and when I was president of WINGS for SG 50 Can Share, a lot of funds do go to the IPCs, away from the other non-IPCs. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I want to assure Ms. Antheong that there are many other sources of funding and support for all groups, regardless of whether they have IPC. And this includes, for instance, our Singapore Fund. It includes our network as well as capability building platforms that are run by the NVPC. And I would like to take this opportunity, in fact, to assure organizations that perhaps have the aspiration but have yet to become IPCs to really take advantage of the various skills building and capacity building workshop and causes that are available to help them get to the next level in terms of governance. We also hope that more of them can do that so that they can be more transparent, more accountable to donors, and that helps them reach out to an even larger pool of givers. So I think that's actually the reason why there is a distinction in treatment between organizations that have attained IPC and those who have not. So for those who have yet to do so, there is support for them to get there, because I think it is ultimately towards the very laudable goals of better governance.
Mr. Alex Yam.
Sorry, Mr. Chairman. I forgot to declare earlier my interest as the Deputy President of the Singapore Table Tennis Association. We receive funding from MCCY as well as have a number of SPEC scholars on our list. To clarify the point I made earlier, some of the athletes that I refer to are already full-time athletes. They are receiving their income through the NSA. So it's not that they have another job that they have to give up on. So when the SPEC scholarship is offered to them, there is a difference between the quantum within the SPEC scholarship and their current income. So my suggestion is to take out that cash portion and to provide them with the other benefits if they are already full-time athletes.
So I thank Mr. Alexiam for the question. So as explained earlier, there are various ways that Sport SG can support NSAs in development of athletes. So in the case where the athlete is really supporting or receiving a full-time pay altogether from STTA, so the other forms of support for training, competitions, there are also other SPECS grants and also the multi-year sports plan that we can work together to see how best to support you. So if the STTA to put into its plan the support required for full-time players under your payroll, I'm sure we can work out something. So perhaps we can take this outside chamber to discuss how we could support STTA more. Thank you.
Ms. Denise Poh.
Thank you, Chairman. Chairman, I just want to support Ping Siu's reimagining sports, inclusive sports. So I just want to ask, if MCCY funds Sports SG, which funds the NSAs, then why can't MCCY request for these agencies to be more inclusive in their visioning? I mean, we don't have to do everything now, but maybe reimagine. And I'm sure we like them to be independent, but surely as funders, you can strongly suggest that they can reimagine a bit of the vision.
I'd just like to share my perspective on this. In my earlier years in MOE, I had the privilege of making some work visits to Australia to study the special needs education sector. And in one of these visits, we were in a suburban area, and they basically showed us a school where, supposed to be very inclusive, takes in any child that basically requests to be in that school. So it sounds very ideal. So I was very attracted to the idea that if the parents so request, can request for any school, mainstream school, to house the child, to provide education to the child, accept the child. But when I went there, what I found was that indeed a child with special needs was in that school, but I must say that the teacher wasn't well equipped, and the child was left very much on her own. So I think this is where sometimes when we say that we want to mainstream the athletes, we like the sort of NSAs to have them. But if they are not ready, if they don't have the coaches, if they don't have the training facilities, because some of them do require special training facilities, then I think we may not be serving the interests of the athletes with disabilities. While SDSC currently has many sports under its umbrella, it has some advantages as well. So for example, when it's promoting sports to persons with special needs broadly, they can do so because resources are within them, the coaches in their network, and when they want to organize a disability sports festival, they can do so with good effect. So we must always make a change carefully. As we said in the speech, it is the interests of the athletes that we place front and foremost in our decision. While NSAs can be persuaded, sometimes by funding, but we are also quite realistic about how effective funding can be used as a tool to influence. As we have seen in many cases, it can only go that much. NSAs are independent body. They have a mind to elect members into their council. They also can decide how they want to run the sports. So it has to be a partnership that we built up over the years. We understand, we totally appreciate the points that Ms. Denise Phua and Ms. Yip Bin Siu talked about, if I may use the word mainstreaming athletes with disabilities, with athletes, with able-bodied athletes. But in this process, I think I'd just like to urge members' patience and due consideration so that we do not dismantle an organization that has already worked for many years and has worked well for a long period of time. And then the main consideration, really whether that the interests of athletes with disabilities are better served. Can they be served in the mainstream, so-called able-bodied NSAs? NSAs that have the capability, I think we would like to encourage them. We'd like to work with them to make a change. But at the same time, we also need to consider all issues. Also, we like to mention that it is not just in high-performance sports that we have an interest in getting sports into persons with disabilities. It is also the broad-based participation, and very often it is the ability to bring in a suite of activities that makes a lot of sense and provide value to the schools, the SPEC schools, because people like Wee Boon started with swimming, goes on to scuba diving, wants to do rugby. It is because I think we have the ability to bring options to him. And so if we have the sports embedded in 20 over NSAs, sometimes I think we may lose some of that synergistic effect of having it in one. So long story, but long and short of it is this. We are always looking at how to improve the system. We are making our facilities a lot more accessible. We're offering more programs so that more persons with disabilities can participate. And we definitely want to support persons with disabilities like Ms. Yip and many others, inspiring athletes. All of them, every single one of them has inspiring life stories. And they are such good role models for every one of us, really. We like to support them, but we need to find the best modality. We are not starting from a blank canvas. We're starting with an existing set of organizations. So just let us move at the pace and the direction that's acceptable to all stakeholders.
Ms. Denise Phua.
I'm totally convinced that MCCY and sports and government has become very inclusive. So I want to honor the minister and the team for that. So, and I've seen it myself from the sector. I'm just asking for, perhaps what Peng Siu has been asking, just more reimagination to have a continuum of operations models. Some, of course, some sports might be best left alone at the moment because of various because of the nature of the game and so forth. But say sports like running, even if someone is intellectually challenged, some of them may be able to run very, very fast, and together with the so-called able-bodied athletes can give them a run for their money. And so, I thought it'd be good that as funders and government to maybe stretch it a bit and get the funded bodies to just reimagine it a bit so that we all can join in that conversation. So not naive to think that everything should be inclusive or everything should be just segregated, but really looking at the blend. And this is really part of how Singapore is currently proceeding as well. So for Minister's consideration.
Dr. Lim Wee Kiat, if you would like to withdraw your amendment.
Chairman, on behalf of the GPC as well as the 23 members who have spoke in this discussion, I'd like to thank the two ministers, the two SMS, as well as MOS and SPS, for their answers for the 47 cuts that we have put in. I'd also like to thank the women and men in MCCY and the related stat boards, for their for their woodwork they have done in promoting caring as well as a cohesive society. Sir, I beg to withdraw my card. I beg leave to withdraw.
Is the honourable member given leave to withdraw the amendment? I think leave of the majority is given. The amendment is withdrawn. The question is that the sum of $1,670,579,200 for head X stand part of the main estimates. As many as are of that opinion say aye. To the contrary say no. I think the ayes have it. The ayes have it. The question is that the sum of $396,490,600 for head X stand part of the development estimates. As many as are of the opinion say aye. To the contrary say no. I think the ayes have it. The ayes have it.